Good evening. It's time to show you more stuff. Tonight, shotgun shells. This is definitely a special one. I've never seen another one. My uncle had this for many years, kept it in a shadow box, and I don't even know what caliber it is. I've never seen another one, and it's kind of cool. It's maybe like a pistol round. Oops. So, yeah, little baby shotgun shell, paper shell. So, kind of cool. Set that aside. So the shotgun shells that typically most everyone is familiar with are 12 gauge. This is a 12 gauge double-aught buck. You've heard about it in movies, probably even shot it. This is an older one, obviously. They don't look like this these days. This is a paper shotgun tube or shell. And very powerful round. You've seen movies, video games, you've heard of 12 gauge. This is how big they are. The kick isn't terrible, but if, it can leave some bruises if you do a lot of shooting. So this is kind of our baseline. Everyone knows 12 gauge. In my opinion, and this is just me, my little rant, I think the 12 gauge, or at least a shotgun, is the best survival weapon, period. Because you can get rounds with slugs, you can get rounds with birdshot, so you can hunt with some distance on them, and rounds aren't really that scarce. You can pretty much always find shotgun shells. So, and they're super powerful. So, to me, best zombie weapon out there, besides a flamethrower, of course. Anyway, so 12 gauge. So, there's a few more on both the left side and the right side, obviously. This little guy would be way over here. I wonder if this even has a gauge. It'd be like 52 gauge or something. So let's step it down just a bit. 12 gauge, and I have a 24 gauge. It's another paper shell. So let's compare. So obviously I forget the exact measurement of gauge. It has to do with, I think, how many lead balls make up a pound equals a gauge. There's like a calculation. I could probably Google it, but I'll leave that to you so you can learn something. But as you can see, this is basically half the size of a 12 gauge as far as if you scale it by number. Then we have, this is a 20 gauge. So this is actually bigger than the 24 gauge. Just a little bit. This is actually a 20 gauge slug. This is just a cool round. I've just had it for display. Weidman, I think it's British. Or, Rostfree, maybe Italian. I don't know. It's cool though. Let's get a measurement. So this guy is not quite 2.5. All right. So we're going to even go a little bit smaller. This is a 410. 410, I would say, is common, at least when I was growing up shooting. It's a good starter type shotgun for younger generation shooters because it doesn't kick all that much and it's still a shotgun. And I think you can even get slugs with these. And if you ever go shooting skeet or trap, try it with the 410. We'll see how good you really are. Less BBs, much more difficulty. So let's compare 12 gauge to 410. Big difference. I mean, obviously this one's a lot longer, but still, big difference. So let's go in the other direction. This is where it gets pretty interesting, in my opinion. So 12 gauge and another common gauge on the larger side is a 10 gauge. 10 gauge is a beast. This is a Magnum 10 gauge too. So look at that thing. Look at that monster. 3-inch, over 3-inch, or right at 3-inch. That is ridiculous. Remember, this is a 12 gauge double-aught buck. We know how powerful a 12 gauge is. Look at the difference on this thing. I mean, yeah. That's how, and that's only in 2 numbers. So remember, this is a 24, this is a 12, 10. Big difference. But we're not done. I'm sure you can guess what's next. That's an 8 gauge. So 8 gauge compared to the 10 gauge Magnum, it doesn't look all that different in height, obviously. But diameter, it's much bigger. I'll show you the back here. 8 gauge. So 10 gauge. Look at that. That is unbelievable. It just swallows. And this is nothing to shake a stick at, but this is even more devastating. So an 8 gauge will swallow a 10 gauge. But wait, there's more. One more. That, can't even get it on camera. Look at that. Look at that monster. And this is only a 4 gauge. They get bigger than this. They go to 2 gauge, which is, that's, yeah, unbelievable. So let's measure this monster. 4-inch. Good God. Yeah. So, same thing. 4 gauge can swallow an 8 gauge. No problem. And remember, 8 gauge can swallow a 10 gauge, and so on. So remember, here's our baseline. 12 gauge. I'm going to have to move some of this here. .12 gauge double-aught buck. I got to hold it sideways. 4 gauge. And we know how powerful a 12 gauge is. And it pretty much will fit all the way down with some extra space. So that's just to show you the scale and how devastating when you ramp up gauges they can really be. This is a old paper shell. I think you can still, I'm sure you can still find some. I just have these for a little display because it's kind of cool. I mean, not many people have ever seen like a 4 gauge. You know, everyone knows 12 gauge, but when you really put it in perspective, it's a big difference. Big difference. And then if we go right back to where we started, which of this unknown, maybe it's a revolver round or just a weird, I have no idea. Look at that little, it's like as big as the primer. It's like throwing a Tic Tac out a window. Yeah. Yeah. So much space. So, now it's time to go Google and see how big shotgun shells really get. Thank you for watching.